of the world, the EU needs to step up. Momentous is expanding its NASA partnership. Have you ever a scam center? Well, there's a bunch of them around the world, but the ones in Myanmar are booming. Why am I mentioning this? Despite all their crackdown attempts, they're using, ready for it, Starlink. And what is today's obsession by everyone of wanting to send something, anything, into orbit? All this and a bunch of great guests to celebrate our first anniversary on this podcast. From the news desk at the Center for Space Commerce and Finance, my name is Thomas Andrew Olson, and this is The Unknown Quantity. All right. This show is hosted by the Center for Space Commerce and Finance. And what do? Well, you know this. We champion and strengthen emerging space startups, space-adjacent enterprises worldwide through advisory access and advocacy, and our pitch events and world-class boot camps fortify startups to be better investor-ready. Now, a lot of our work, especially this podcast, is supported by our listeners and fans like you. So you just go to cscf.space/support and click that plainest day donate button. A little tip jar each month makes a big difference. And if you're not helping us out right now, you must be like, I don't know how you're getting this show. You're probably sleeping under a bridge. So come on, put it on the tip jar. Give us a big shot. And now coming on quickly, my oldest space friend Michael Lane is back from watering his lotus flowers. Michael. With the pregnant pause, of course, on the anniversary show. Hey, there he is.
Hey,
how you doing, man?
Hey, I have a fun piece of tidbit news today that's not in our list, and I wanted to kind of share it with you on our anniversary here.
Go ahead. I got
something. I met a fan of our show today.
What?
I had no idea. So
was it Morty?
Nope.
Hi, Morty.
It was somebody whom I had no idea that they were watching our show. I had no idea at all. Hey, Aiden, hi, Morty. Thanks for being a part of this. I went to my bank. I've been banking at Key Bank for about 5 years now. Pretty good. Okay. They're good with me for my personal stuff. And I have known the security guard. Just, hey, how you doing? Chatting. He's known I was a space nerd, really since the beginning. He had something on one day on his shirt that I commented, like, hey, are you a space nerd? And like, yeah, I'm a space nerd, and like, live long and prosper and whatever. And we just started talking. And every time I go to the bank, I'll go in and I'll say hi to him for 5 minutes, and I'll come out and I'll say hi to him for 5 minutes, and we'll just talk space nerd stuff, right?
Okay.
But even though I've known him for 5 years, he had no idea that I was the space elevator guy. And the banker asked me to come in and meet with her about the elevator. She was intrigued by the project. She was intrigued by the company. And on my way out, I'm talking to Chris. And I'm like, hey, cool. Just chatting about. And then, with no warning at all, I had no idea he'd been watching the show. He just casually drops in the conversation about $1,500,000,000 from J.P. Morgan. He drops in the German $41 billion, and he's like, yeah, I watched the show, and I'm like, I had no idea. It was first time I've met a fan that was just out in the wild, out in the wilderness, saying hi and telling us that he likes the show. So it was
how did you ever find him?
He found me because he knew I was doing podcasts, so he followed me through the ether and found the show through that. So He doesn't watch live. I asked him if he watched live. He's like, I never watch live. He watches the YouTube channel afterwards, or he'll listen to it on the way to and from work or whatever. But yeah, so shout out to Chris. So thanks, y'all.
Good for him. Thanks.
Kind of nice meeting the fan. I'd never met a fan of the show just out in the wild. So that was really fun.
That had to be a big day.
Yeah.
We got some people I haven't seen in a while. Aiden is new. Hi Morty, and Wes is here. Wes Ferris. Yep. And so we're gonna have a fun show. Now, before we suggested actually Sean agreed we should do this. We have a few guests tonight, as it turns out, and I thought while we're doing the news, we'd have them come on as well and put in their 2 cents worth on some of these news stories. So why don't we just bring them in? Let's have some fun. This is we got 9 minutes. What could go wrong? Joe Luttrell, founder of Cube. Doug Plata, MD, who's been a guest on our show before.
And welcome, guys. Morty's here in like 10 more seconds.
There he is. Yeah. Okay.
Hey,
here
everybody.
We go.
Super fun. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for coming in, guys. This is great. This is absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So lovely to have you. And I hope more will come in on the chat later. Yep. So this is the big thing that tickled my funny bone today. It says, once unthinkable, NASA and Lockheed are now considering launching the Orion on other rockets. This just anybody. Does this make any sense at all? Yeah.
Too little, too late.
Too little, too late. I knew it from the engineer in the room. Joe, what do you think?
What? Yeah, I mean, by the time you figure out all the interfacing and getting all of those little details worked out, what's the point?
Yeah. Exactly. And then there's this thing, they mentioned in the article too, there's also the problem of, figuring out how the heat shield and what you're going to do with that. Because that wasn't designed to be reusable in any way, that whole system. So how do you retrofit that to actually fit a reusable business model? The point of it, apparently, is to have a reusable business model.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. And you might as well build a new capsule from scratch.
The last I checked, Doug, please go ahead.
Yeah, Tom, do remember that Orion was launched on a Delta IV Heavy, if I'm not mistaken. So it's already been done.
Okay. All right. But again, it seems to be very married to SLS. As the launcher of choice. I mean, how far will a Delta IV Heavy get you?
What's that?
Another flyby?
No, not yet.
No, not to lunar flyby.
Did they do that on a Delta IV Heavy?
It was below that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess
I feel like. Go ahead, Tom. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say its first big translunar test is coming up. I guess next year.
SLS for that.
So, yeah, that's what I thought. Delta IV Heavy can't get it to the moon, so I just wanted to, because it was I presume that was I guess they can do it, but does it serve any useful purpose, or is that just a one and done?
Well, we talked about this months ago when in the big beautiful bill added, what was it, $10 billion to NASA specifically to give life support to SLS, and I'm like, that's going to Orion. I said that was going to live, that was going to keep Orion alive. And I was like, of all the things that I hate about this program, I kind of dig Orion. So I'm a little bit in favor of this. Yeah, I have a lot of concerns. I'm really, really glad that I'm not the guy who has to integrate this thing, because
And it seems
I don't know how that's going to play, but
it seems to be with all the development costs for Orion. And the last time I checked on it, and that was years ago, by the way. Maybe someone can help me out here. Anyone. The development cost of Orion as of a certain date was $8 billion. Now, it only cost Elon Musk about a tenth of that to develop the Falcon all the way up through Falcon 9, plus not the Crew Dragon, but the uncrewed dragon,
Cargo dragon.
The cargo dragon. That's what I was looking for. And up to $800 million was all he spent on that whole thing.
Right.
And so,
Doug, don't have your comments private. Go jump in there, man. Say what you're saying to the public, because they're interesting comments.
I have the bandwidth. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
I'm not sure I have the bandwidth.
It's a little choppy,
hear
but
me?
you're good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's 4.1 billion per launch, not 8 billion per launch.
Well, 8 billion. No, you're right. That's 8 billion per launch
NASA,
of the whole system. Yeah. Yeah, we get that. But
NASA needs to put out an RFI asking how Artemis without SLS. I think if they were to simply do that, they would very quickly find out that people have ideas. In particular, Falcon 9 Dragon to low Earth orbit, transfer crew over into HLS filled at LEO, and then boost up to NRHO, transfer over to the HLS lander.
Okay. All right.
Do you think Starship's at all going to get in there now that there's some more success there? Sure. Do you think that has anything to do with this decision? Like now that they have kind of two options with Blue and with SpaceX?
Yeah. I have never been a fan of Starship being a lunar lander. I've never been a fan of that, because everything that's long and skinny, whether it's a small thing or a big thing, has a problem with balance. The CG and the center of gravity and the center of mass change significantly when you're going from Earth gravity to lunar gravity, and they just haven't figured that out, how to make it stay upright. But a short, squat vehicle like Blue Moon, the old LEM, I mean, that worked fine.
Yeah.
Yes, Doug.
Yeah, Tom. You have something that's particularly long. It's going to go through its degrees more slowly, so it's actually easier for the thrust to control something that's long than short. Is balancing a broom versus balancing a pencil.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well,
but there's.
I think Tom's really talking about when it lands on an uneven surface. If there's even the slightest tilt of the landing, it makes it easier to fall over.
And the problem with them previously has been a lot.
Yeah, just because it's going to an unprepared surface.
You don't have to be that smart of an engineer to adjust the legs to what the radar is the conformation of the surface. I think it's very doable to land it exactly upright with the center of gravity directly between the points of the legs.
Okay.
But for some reason, a lot of the previous landers, and again, I don't know for sure why, and you could say, but they've been automated. So that was a big part of the landings on the moon, where that last little bit was done by the computer.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if that's something that's maybe we've gotten past that point, and now we can communicate in real time with the lander. But for sure, manually, SpaceX lands rockets all the time on in the ocean, so they definitely have that control. But if they can't do it manually, then if we don't have a system that can accurately do that 100% of the time, you're risking the whole thing tipping over.
Yeah, well, one of the things you do when you have a tall rocket trying to land on a surface is you're introducing an unknown risk. All right, there's a reason why the LEM has a 4:3 ratio on the legs.
No, remember,
and it worked.
The landing engines are very high. The landing engines
Yeah, and that doesn't really help in balancing a rocket. That's one of those. The Goddard actually found this out a long time ago when he put the engine up front first, thinking that he could work it and keep the mass below. That doesn't help. It's a fallacy in the way engineering works. You have to have, whether you put the engines on or not, the wider the vehicle,
Joe, can you
the
explain
safer
that?
it is for landing. That's just, I mean, look at, okay, so who's successfully landed on the moon so far? Every lander that has made it has had a wide stance.
Yep, it's the short, squat ones have made it, and the tall, skinny ones have fallen over a couple of times now.
Does what do y'all think about Starship 11 as it relates to this conversation with Orion? Is it a non-starter? Does it not matter, or is it relevant? Like, we're moving from version 2 to version 3. Starship is going to continue to get better. Does Starship have a role with this, Orion capsule?
What are you gonna do? Take the booster and just put the Orion on top of it with a fairing?
Well,
and say,
inside, right?
Inside,
they keep talking about how they demonstrated being able to eject mock-up of Starlink satellites. Have they figured out how to open the pod bay doors and get a big item out? Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead,
Doug.
Routinely
landing. SpaceX is routinely landing Starship's circle, both the booster as well as the star.
Sure, yeah, we know that. I'm just saying, on an unprepared site
problem
like the
that can be
moon,
solved.
Okay, yeah.
Well, the thing is the first mission that we're doing to send a landing pad, could that be that one mission, and then we just quickly construct some sort of landing pad to keep landing these in the future?
Yeah, we were talking about Sam Jimenez a couple
of days ago. I was
days.
going to say, my buddy Sam knows how to do that right now, and would love to.
Sam is going to totally. Yeah. He's going to pave the whole moon if he can.
That's a little too much.
and if I have my way to reduce regolith dust that's going to eat up my ribbon, I'm definitely going to pave the moon. So, yeah. All right, what else we got here?
This company wants to basically move solar power to nighttime. If you can't get solar power at night on Earth, they'll just want to launch some reflectors up into Earth orbit, and geosynchronous probably, and just reflect the sun onto the night sky to give us some more sun at night. I don't know. I studied environmental science at school, and I'm thinking, what could go wrong with this? We're already having enough trouble with our sleep cycles and diurnal stuff, and now, to be sure, there are people who live above the Arctic Circle for 84 days a year. It's in nothing but sunlight, and same thing happens in at the South Pole. That's a few people who either have lived up there or they volunteer to go do that. The rest of us have day-night cycles and most animals have day-night cycles that are vaguely important. Is this something worth doing?
So, first of all, let's kind of like box this in a little bit. They're talking thousands or hundreds of thousands of satellites, specifically to point at solar panels on the ground, right? Normal, everyday, vanilla solar panels on the ground that, blanket the world. And they would send power in off hours to those already pre-existing locations and power that grid. But then they start looking at the math of that system. And y'all all know I am not the guy who throws big ideas under a bus, right? I'm not going to knock somebody else's big idea because I have my own big idea that's already pretty hard. So, but I do think it's really worthwhile to take a look at the math behind this thing and ask a lot of very important questions. So, yeah, they're talking about a fully developed system is 4,000 satellites in orbit by 2030, and these are big sats. These are 54 meters, delivering 200 watts of power, and they imagine a constellation of 250,000 sats, 600 kilometers up.
So that's then the real issue that we discussed. It's not the environmental problem of sunlight at night so much as it is we're putting up 4 million more satellites with the potential for even 10 times the space junk we have already. That's going to cause a problem down the road.
Yeah, I find this idea wildly ambitious, but I really question A, if it's needed, and B, if it's a good idea. This is one of those things where just because you can build it, should you? Should you? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't ask that question enough anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they're going for the green energy guys, which I 100% am, right? That I am their target market, but yeah, I have some questions about this thing.
Okay. Well, here's my prediction: they will get enough money to do a test project. They'll launch, a dozen of these things and aim them at a little spot in the Mojave where someone puts up a big solar panel, and we'll see if they can do it. And even if they can, I don't know where you go from there, whether they'll, get able to expand that or not. That's what's probably going to happen if they do anything at all. That's my prediction, and I'm sticking to it.
I personally, I think
I'm curious. All right.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yep,
Go ahead.
I was just about to call
you're on, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's an interesting idea. I think trying to use constellations for things that don't make sense are now starting to show up, and it's like Starlink showed that a constellation of massive size can do some amazing things. Now everybody wants to duplicate it. And I wouldn't be surprised if, like Tom said, they're going to launch a few of these. They're going to pivot and find out it's just easier to capture the solar power on orbit and transmit it down. That'd be a lot cleaner than just bouncing sunlight. Because if you think Starlinks cause problems for astronomers, wait till these things get up there.
And Joe, even another point to that is they're not generating anything in space. They just have a mirror, which means that all the value is from the solar panels that we've already created on Earth. So how much more are you able to get from that little bit of nighttime? I mean, obviously that's half the time, but is that enough to say that you're just sending something up there? You're not generating anything up there. You're not getting any additional value. If they have panels up there and then they can beam that down, that's different.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that's what they
think too. Here's something the tinfoil hat people want to tell you is that you have a big array like that up there, with the reflectors like that. Well, if you could focus that just perfect, it'll become like a burning lens. Remember when you were a kid, you had the big burning lens and you could burn the insects, and have fun when you were like 7 years old. Yeah, they're going to aim that thing at Beijing. It'll be.
But I'm sure people will be coming up with militaries for that too. That's
I'm just going to put my cult leader hat on for a moment. The space-based solar power folks have known for a long time that them beaming energy back to the ground will change the temperature of that focused environment just a little bit, a couple degrees, not significant in the world, but it is enough that you could steer a storm into a port. You could steer a hurricane, a typhoon into a populated environment. So that's kind of been known for a long time. So now I don't think that these small reflective mirrors have enough collective individual energy to do that, but collectively when they get larger, I think that they maybe can. And there's a lot of push right now to start putting data centers in the sky. I've been saying that a lot the last couple of weeks. I still have some questions about that, but I'm beginning to be convinced. I think if you have a constellation of 250,000 of anything in the sky, you can make the business case for it. If you're doing data, if you're doing optical comms, just tracking. But man, I really, Aiden's asking if this could negatively affect plant and animal life, animal migrations. I think probably it will.
It might.
Yeah,
and of course, I agree with Dr. Kothari, who just joined us. Welcome, sir. Nothing beats thorium molten salt reactors for energy on Earth. Easier, cheaper, controllable by users. And China is already way ahead of us on that. And the only reason we don't build them here is because the military likes the old school ones, because that's what you use to build nukes.
Yep. All right, let's move on. We're kind of spending a lot of time on some of these articles.
Okay, I just wanted to
welcome,
the next
Daniel.
one. I just
we'll bring you on.
Great.
Go ahead.
Daniel got here. Anyway, there's this reusable rocket that's coming on called Miura 5. It's coming online in Europe. I think just the other day we mentioned that the head of ESA was saying, we need to start doing something with reusables if we're going to keep up with SpaceX. And so and then here it is 3 days later. Oh, there is one that's actually getting certified to be launched. So maybe they'll get some hope over there.
Yeah, I was kind of not familiar with this.
I didn't know who they were either.
PLD Space? No, this was new to me. I'm going to have to investigate this a little bit more. PLD Space is working on reusability. That would be, as far as I know, Europe's only program.
Now it's launching in Kourou, not anywhere within the property of the EU, but at least that area is owned by them, so I guess that counts.
Right. Well, they've got, I don't know, where's PLD Space located? Because if they set up shop in Berlin, they've got access to a giant pile of money. So if it were me, Spain. Okay, if it were me, I'd put some of my 400 workers. They exceed 400 workers. I had no idea. I would put a couple hundred of them in Berlin right now, because that's where the money is. Anybody have any comments on that?
Yep. Well, it sounds like what they're going to be trying to do is great. I mean, reusability is the win. they're moving faster than Europe's official project for reusability. I understand that they delivered exactly one landing leg on the prototype so far in 6 years of development.
Okay.
So hopefully they can make it happen. We need more of it. More, please. More, please.
More,
Yeah.
please. Right on.
Sure.
Doug, go ahead. What do you got?
Okay. Well, okay. I think it's
Sure, that PLD space is in. I'm reading that PLD space is in Alicante, Spain.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thanks. Tom, did you have something?
Well, yeah, I thought we'd since Daniel's here, I thought we'd get him in, and maybe we got some other news items. So I thought we'd break for a minute and bring Daniel Tompkins in. He was our featured guest this evening. Daniel, welcome. Daniel he's been an agricultural scientist for more than 20 years. He runs an organization called GrowMars. And he says he wants to feed life not just here on Earth, but well beyond. Daniel, welcome. And tell us all about GrowMars. What do you guys do?
Well, just to revisit the launch topic there on reusability,
Okay.
it's interesting with Rocket Lab, right? I'm in Virginia based, and it's interesting to see Rocket Lab, right, go from New Zealand to Virginia and now transition. So it's interesting that model, how far can it go? Can it make it to Europe? Can it make it to, can we actually have launch companies be multinational companies, not just multinational service providers, but actually, extend out. And I don't know anything about that story behind Rocket Lab expanding and all of that, but it's just, I don't know. I think less, if the main problem is dilution in commercial space to a certain extent, we need more of that type of activity. I think to keep this stuff going. But yeah, as far as agriculture in space, it's definitely getting interesting. As far as kind of where the science is headed and the different groups, there's been a lot of kind of tangential work that's all kind of coming together. I think that's kind of been passed through a few filters over the last 5 years, as far as different methodologies and approaches and different groups working on it. And now it's kind of coalescing into something that's now a topic of conversation, whereas before it was kind of very, very few people were talking about this stuff. Now there's a much more pragmatic kind of approach to implementing some of these solutions. So yeah, it's been quite the interesting year, I'd say.
Okay. Well, okay. So what? Because I've seen groups before. I've seen them at conferences, and they want to do agricultural stuff, and they show you grand plans for the things that they want to build, or some of the work that they've done before. I knew one guy years ago. He was working out of his own house and building interesting things just with parts he got at Home Depot. They're trying to put a self-contained system together. What specifically is your group working on, and what distinguishes you from everybody else?
Well, not much. I was at Home Depot last night getting parts. So, it's still, there's not a lot of even closed water loop greenhouse systems, particularly that are low cost and running and finding critical failure points. So it's still a very emergent, even just right, the utility of having a closed water loop greenhouse system is something that's been kicked around for years. And whether you're operating them on Earth or in space, because you run the same type of challenges operating those. So it's fascinating that there's not a lot of test beds still, but the talk around biomanufacturing in particular is advancing. There was a DARPA RFI out for large biomechanical structures in space. And what I thought would be a rather small workshop, there was over 200 attendees. And it was a big in-person deal out in the Bay Area. I wasn't able to make it physically, but I was really surprised at a lot of at the level of engagement and the diversity of engagement that was going into it, and just the attention that was getting. Now, it didn't go towards an RFP, so there were no proposals, but there was a lot of really interesting people where it brought a conversation to the table that had not been before on doing these things near term, not eventually, but a more near term demand signal. So
I love that.
Yeah. And then just got back from the Mars Society conference where a whole morning session was on biology. The whole morning plenary session was on the history of biology, of could it be on Mars, and the cellular biology, to what can biomanufacturing do to us, to what's being done in the lab to advance things forward. So there was 3 hours basically of the Mars Society day 2, all talking about this. So that's something that had not, and I'm grateful for it, because I tell these people, like, this makes my job a lot easier. It's been very hard to scream about this stuff, this stuff from the top of a mountaintop.
Well, it's good to know you're not a voice in the wilderness.
Yes,
I guess.
Yes. That's a reassuring thing. Yeah. No, to have collaborators, to have work being put forth, but at the same time, it's back to square one. A lot of the science is still kind of stuck in 1995. A lot of the core problem sets. So as much as people have been ruminating on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Is there something specific you're some specific milestone you're working on right now, and it's one of these days you're gonna do a show and tell?
The interesting thing about what I'm working from is it's rather boring. It's not some big leap forward in bio-derived plastics or anything like that. It's just applied to a very new context and in a new way. So the carbon market is definitely getting increasingly interested in it. That's another big vertical market that's very earth-based play, is that once you have these massive, essentially carbon negative structures being made at a low energetic cost, you do a lot of, and it's permanent too. That's still a gap in the messaging around bioplastics. That's still, I'm up there on a mountaintop in the forest somewhere screaming about, the solution's bio-derived, non-biodegradable plastics, which is a whole nother level of narrative to this stuff. That's still a little bit of a leap beyond, but yeah, but I think the carbon thing, because of the permanence, they want it. They don't want it to degrade. They want that carbon locked away. So that's a really interesting element that's gaining a lot of traction. Of course, UN Climate Week always kicks that along as well. So that always, I feel like every October, there's always a carbon crunch that kind of comes through as a follow-on from Climate Week in New York City and at the UN.
All right. That's very
Daniel,
interesting.
explain the bioplastics a little bit more, because a lot of people that are going to be listening to this show don't know what that means.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So the origination around GrowMars was the unrealized potential of bio-derived plastics. And this curious little thing, one of the Disney Imagineering persons, he put it best. He said, science happens at that moment when you say, that's curious. And I'd never really heard that before, but that was the moment for me, was that's curious. There's some bio-derived plastics that are non-biodegradable. And I just kind of threw that in the filing cabinet of my brain somewhere. And then when I looked at the context of Mars, that's what I realized, this could be applied to Mars, is you could grow all that biology that's using the CO2 in the atmosphere to build your hydrocarbons. And then you have a bioplastic that's non-biodegradable that you can make more greenhouse out of, durable stuff that's not going to decompose. And I said, well, what would that look like, from a hardware standpoint? 3D printing was kicking along. This was back 2016, 2017. And people were actually working more with plastics and stuff. And it was like, what would this look like? Now you could envision, a 3D printer kind of making a plastic greenhouse and stuff. What would this other piece of hardware look like? So yeah, that's really that curious little fact that you can make plastic energetically very cheap and essentially derive it on site if you have CO2 and water.
I'm going to remind our listeners that Daniel Tompkins is formally referred to as Dr. Daniel Tompkins, and he is informally known as a plant whisperer. That was my first interaction with him. And he has taught me, I wouldn't say I've learned a lot about plant biology, but I have listened to a lot of lectures from Dr. Tompkins on plant biology, and I'm pretty convinced he knows what he's talking about. So it's been really fun getting to know him over the last few years, because every time I talk to him, kind of this bubble in my head just kind of expands on what is possible and why his tech makes so much sense in the space sector. Daniel, talk a little bit about how your plans don't really work down here on the ground, but only really work in a space economy.
Yeah, so the economy of scale of the plastics industry. So if you buy like a biodegradable plastic water bottle or something like that, I've got one of them like right here. It's Just Water. You've probably seen these box waters. Actually, the top of it is a bioplastic. It doesn't cost like 10 times the cost of another one, right? So it's still very energetically cheap to make this stuff, but it's still an economy of scale thing so there's lots of companies that are doing this, that are playing around with biodegradable ones and non-biodegradable and stuff like that, but they're going into consumer products that are incredibly cheap. To do this hardware small scale is you lose that economy of scale. So showing like this balance of plant, we could go to a big plastic company and pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they could do this. They could say, hey, yeah, here's our R&D equipment, and yeah, like let's actually track, at the R&D level, how much kilowatts we use, and have this lab bench process put in a box, a magical box that would make you no money, in the plastics industry, like selling plastic for like $1,000 a kilogram, right? Like in your local plastic, it's not a business case, right?
Right.
So it's really the utility of kind of starting small and bootstrapping your infrastructure by doing this, whether it's carbon sequestration on Earth in a really remote location that's logistically constrained, and or in space. And I think mistakenly used the term self-replicating. To me it was self-replicating because it was very like much biology. But what I should have used was compounded growth. Is you have that initial greenhouse, and then because really that's what makes sense to the financial folks, is that this is compound growth. It's just what's your rate of doubling, and it's a positive feedback loop. I went from self-replicating to people didn't really understand all the biology and the plastics and stuff, and it was messy, to positive feedback loop, an expanding loop. Instead of all the closed loop architecture stuff is like, hey, that it's still prone to entropy. You still have these things you're not going to totally be able to clean up. So this whole 100% magical closed loop thing, I think is still needs some work. But having an expanding loop, okay, maybe that would be the way to explain it. But I more think so compounded growth loop, positive feedback loop doesn't really mean much to folks, is another way of describing it.
Neat. Very cool. We got a question from a college student that I keep trying to say is in the Midwest, but he's actually in New York. Aiden, he very frequently asks our guests this question. So this is it's not a recycled question, but he asks something like this just about every time he shows up. So what are your thoughts about this? Each of you come from wildly different backgrounds.
I heard a good one recently from Brett Sherwood. So he was with Blue Origin Advanced Development Program. He was on a podcast, and he said, be a specialist first and then a generalist. And I agreed mostly with that, is be a specialist first, and then you can go into a more general area, but also kind of in that arc still touch on a lot of things, is learn a lot of things along the way, but make sure you get that specialty deep dive, because then that's kind of like your foundation of kind of a skill set.
Well, don't
Anybody else?
Oh,
Don't ask me because I have such a varied background. It's
Yeah.
hard to say. I mean, I started out as a biologist, and then I worked in medicine for a while, and then ended up in IT for 31 years, and now I work in telecom, and I also do space business startup development and assist. And
So you're like three specialists.
yeah,
and
all rolled
generalists.
into one really weird guy. So go figure. So I don't know what to tell you. You could do any one of those things, and you'd probably end up okay.
Yeah.
Me, I don't sleep at night, so hey.
Doug is definitely a specialist. You have anything to add to that, Doug?
I'm not sure I'm the best one to answer this because I'm not sure that I really work in the space industry. I'm very engaged, and certainly I've made all sorts of contacts in many different ways, like attending conferences. So I think that might be in there. But I've seen that the internships can be really critical, because very often is your foot in the door.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I would say the number one skill to have in the space industry, which is missing from a lot of folks, is communication. You can have some of the greatest ideas on the planet, but if you can't explain it to anybody, you might as well not have had the idea. So when we have interns come in, or we have new hires, we push them through a lot of communication. Cool. Teach them how to tell us what you're doing. Without that, it doesn't matter what specialization you have.
And that's what we always did in our competitions with our boot camps.
Yeah,
that's the first thing we do. We put them up on the very first moment and say, okay, do your pitch right now.
Yeah,
in front of everybody else, and then the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, and we all just pile on. And it's a very unique situation for those guys, and they always come out of it a whole lot better.
Mm-hmm.
For my 50 interns, I make them go through formal Mondays, which means wear a shirt and tie. You should be able to tie that tie. Wear the right clothes. Give a PowerPoint on what you did this last week to build an elevator in space. And it's like, it's deer in the headlights with some of these kids. So this, because, and that came to fruition because of all of my staff tended to be quite a bit younger. So Marty, do you have any words of wisdom here? I know you're kind of new in the game, but you've got to know something at this point about what it takes to build.
Yeah, and I think just Sean posted something along similar to what I said, but I think honest, the top skill really is a little bit of confidence. At the end of the day, we all have to be a little bit crazy. I know we're saying that in the private chat, but the industry is wild. So you have to be very sure of what you're doing and again, be an expert at that. So besides for all that, I think, confidence is really, I would say, is that number one. No, be sure that this is of what you're doing and how you're doing that.
I'm gonna add one more thing. Hold on a second. Let me get to mine first. Aiden, you have to build something. You have to get your hands dirty. You're a coder. I know you're a coder, so you don't get your hands dirty all that much, but you have to get your hands dirty. You have to build something, whether it works or fails. There's lessons in there, and I don't hire anybody who hasn't built something. So that's where that's a hard rule at Liftport Group. Yeah.
And working with those people that are good builders too, like whether it's building businesses in a growing market, that's a great one to be attached to, or work with those folks that, I mean, for me, it was a boat builder, believe it or not, down in Florida. And he was doing these prototype boats and stuff. And he taught me just how to free build and how to put a concept into production and stuff. And it was an amazing process watching. Yeah. So do that internship experience, even if you don't know how to build, find someone who knows how to build at anything that you're interested in. And the process is rather similar. So,
Yep. Just for a roll call here, right? So Doug Plata has his space development network. Go out and build things. Morty's all about building robots and test articles for the elevator, and Joe and Daniel have been building stuff for years. So you have to integrate into something that gets built in the sky. Go ahead, Doug.
Yeah. Do you guys consider 3D design and as qualifying as building?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
100%.
100%.
Yeah. And I count production code as building something also, right? There's a lot of ways you can build something.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't. When we built robots 20 years ago, we would get cut, bleed on our robots. We would, sweat in the hot sun, putting these robots in the sky. There's a lot, but you don't have to do that anymore, right? We're wrestling with ones and zeros right now. That's every bit as effective, much more cost effective than bleeding on robots anymore. So you can do an awful lot with simulation tools and digital twins before you actually have to.
And I think is that the late Steve Jobs used to say, "Good artists may steal, but great artists ship." You ship something, and that's always he was a big believer in that, and brought Apple back from the brink to one of the largest companies in the world.
Right. And credit to Sean in the background. He's like, I helped build this show. Right. I'm just reading this right here. I built boats. I built log homes, built songs for a band, and helped build this show. So right on, Sean.
Yeah,
appreciate you.
Thank you, Sean. We do appreciate you very much. Before I lose it, before my brain loses, I got to ask Daniel something, because he was talking about biomaterials that are non-biodegradable. Now, what bio is that being derived from? Is it a specific set of plants?
Yeah,
I know it's not hemp. I know you can make plastic out of hemp, but I don't think it's what you're talking about.
No, it could be. So the way that a certain category of plastic can be made is very much based off the carbohydrate portion of it. So one of the 6 top renewable chemicals is a chemical called furfural, which is derived from sugarcane. They do an acid-based distillation of sugarcane, the inedible portions of sugarcane, into furfural, and it's one of the most commonly used chemicals for a variety. It's a backbone chemical for a lot of things, including plastics, and that's literally 100-year-old technology. They used to do it from oat holes, and now they do it from about 50% of the world's furfural is from the Dominican Republic, and using this process. So it's think of plants as just kind of a fresher oil, really. Is that there's nothing you can't derive from fresh plant material that you can't derive from oil. It's just you have to go through some additional steps in distillation. There's nothing magical in oil. It's just really old biomass. Just think of it that way.
I say that because I asked that because I've always been a big fan of the idea, a big advocate for it, growing hemp on the moon or Mars or someplace else, because it's such a versatile plant. You can do anything with it. You can get medicines from it. You can get fabric from it. You can get plastic from it. You can get all sorts of things, and it renews the soil as it goes.
Yeah, I think
it's a big plus.
Other weedy pioneer species, right? That's how it got its name, right? I think are really underrated in space because they can be used to gather these minerals, right? They're the pioneers, is they can take those tough conditions that a crop plant is just never going to. So really just accessing that is instead of like seeing how we can improve tomato yields in like Mars regolith, we should really just be seeing like what grows the best in Mars regolith. Like we have a whole toolbox of biology here on Earth that we can try. And everything from algal, there's soil-based algal species to kind of weedy pioneer species that can be used. And then the magic of that is once that plant material isn't elementally that much different from humans. the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, is it's sorted out all those elements for you and kind of biomined that regolith for the minerals that you either need for fertilizer for another crop of plants or for upcycling into a food-based system. So, and then on the bio-derived plastic side, there's often this focus on hyper circularity and kind of this closed loop access and hyper efficiency, which I think is almost, you have the extensibility of space, right? We're not going to run out of real estate on Mars or in space anytime soon. So you can use that extensibility aspect of it versus the efficiency and intensification of it very differently than what we're doing here on Earth. So, and then once you have that food production at scale, it's not a waste. Those roots, stems, leaves, you can distill those down into your hydraulic oil that you need to do whatever, right, on Mars with hydraulic oil. So I think, this rush towards a hyper efficiency is losing the value of all those other derivatives that can be gained from just having a robust, really expansive crop production system.
Okay. All right. Tommy Chong is with us right now. I know he has a question about this. No, just kidding. But we do have a question from a new person that came on. He goes by the handle of Old King Cole. But yeah, that wasn't the question I was thinking of, but okay.
Right. I also like that. And I heard about that just earlier. Oh, I know what this is. Hey, hi. I think this might be Chris earlier. All right. So with a renewed interest into reality of space industry in its early stages, how would you re-engage the youth of our country with an interest into space? I'm gonna point that to you, Doug. You don't typically work with students, but you do work with older professionals typically. And then Morty, you're next up on that one because you do work with students right now.
What is the question?
How do you engage students? How do you re-engage students into the space sector?
The approach that I use in the Space Development Network is we're getting contacts on LinkedIn. You can get their profile. If you find anybody searching you out, I just immediately follow up. And if it looks like a good contact, then I would send them an invite. If they accept, I immediately go in and send them an email inviting them to connect. And based upon their particular interest in their profile, I generally pose a challenge for them. Would they like to get involved in a set of surface vehicles, for example? I just did that this morning. And I find that students are some of the most responsive contacts that I get. I think those of us who are older have responsibilities, and although students can be very busy, they seem to be able to find time within their schedule to work on things that they feel is important. So I find it's actually pretty successful.
Cool. Morty?
So that maybe more on the broader perspective of
Morty, give a little bit of background before you answer your question, because I wanted them to have some context about who you are.
So our organization, WSPEC, we host competitions at a university level globally around the world to develop technology for the space elevator and to further that technology. So we're dealing a lot with students from all around the world, and what we're seeing is there's not really a lack of interest. I think there's a lack of guidance or really where to go in the industry or how to get into it. I think there's a lot of interest, but people really want stuff to happen. I think the pace of the space industry is difficult, especially with newer generation and intentions. People want stuff to move quicker. So that's a big thing. I think a big part of invigorating this is going out and actually, when we build the space stations, when we land on the moon, when we go to Mars, all these milestones that people have been talking about for a very long time will, I think, by default, reinvigorate a lot of new talent and new people. But again, I think a lot of it is the guidance side of really making sure that people can see how to get into this industry. It's a very difficult industry to get into, and there's that. So I think one of the big ways to invigorate and get people right now to get into it is just giving them a path and really giving them that direct line to go from a student to a career in the industry. So that's what I find. I guess anyone else have anything?
Joe Luttrell, what do you think?
Those are all fantastic. Engaging anybody and getting into the space game, as crazy as this world is to be in, is cool. What I actually do over the summer is I run one-day camps. So I work with other camps that are put together, like Sky Camp or the like here in PA, and I will bring my rockets out. Okay, I do high power rocketry. I will bring rockets out. We discuss the rockets. We'll try and build some rockets if there's time, and then we launch a really big rocket for the kids to see. And you would have no idea how much that gets them inspired to keep the flame going. Because we're targeting 6th grade to 10th grade. I've worked with teachers in space. They handle high school. They're fantastic at it. But you got to get that sense of wonder into the kid before it's beaten out of them by the school system. And we try and get them to think outside the box. It's like they see this rocket and say, well, can I do that? Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do I have to study? Math, science, let's start there. Engineering,
But you don't have to be a math or science savant to get into this world, right?
No, you don't.
I am not an engineer. I make that clear to everybody. I have a business background, so I do have a pretty good handle on the money side of numbers, but operations, logistics, finance, law, policy, public relations, communications. We talked about communications earlier. There's so many paths into this industry, and I've had a lot of interns that have a very wide skill set, and I always figure out a way to find a place for them that fits what they're interested in. So, yeah.
Okay, before we get on to the next thing, we have some things to do. I want to, sometime before the show is over, we still got a half an hour. I want to talk about the center a little bit and what I want to get a little bit, Michael, you and I especially, into probably the highlights of the last year of doing this show, okay, and what you might have in store for you in the coming 12 months. I want to talk about that near the end. But right now, since I've got Joe and Doug and Morty here, you've been past guests on the show as well, I'd like to see a little update from each of you as what's actually going on in your world right now, where you've made progress in things since the last time you were on. Joe, you start, and then Doug.
Okay. Well, actually, quite a bit has happened. Before I was on the show the first time, we'd actually won a grant from the center, and we've been using that printer. We used that money to get a printer. And, well, right now, it's in the middle of a 14-hour print of our next generation satellite deployer.
I'm going to remind everybody that was the no strings attached $1,000 micro grant award.
Yep. And we use that to buy a 3D printer that allows us to print the materials that we need to be using for building literally industrial grade product. Mm-hmm. And that is going gangbusters. I mean, we went from version 1 to version 2 to now version 3. We've done that since we started all of this. The third version will be the one we launch, and the unit that's being printed right now is our qualification unit, so it is going to be tested to destruction. Yes. Hey, come on, anytime you can break something, right?
Yeah.
Mythbusters worked for a reason. Boom.
Right.
So we're gonna be running that through some tests, and we've got modified our designs on our satellites. They're much more efficient now, and yeah, we're progressing fast into the next generation of hardware that we plan to put a dozen of these up in 2026. So time is short.
Okay. And we'll be rooting for you all the way. Hopefully this will happen before ISDC, and so you'll have a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah.
In Virginia, the second week of June. Doug, you're up. What are you doing?
How quickly can I share screen?
Very, very quickly. It's the middle button with the monitor with an up arrow.
Okay, I'm to share the entire screen. Looks like it might take a while. Could you move on and then come back to me?
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Morty.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff coming up over the next couple of weeks. We do have a workshop next weekend in Mongolia. So that's virtually from here, but that's exciting. That's on the team development side. So we're opening applications with that. So that'll kind of be the launch of the 26-year applications for the student side for these competitions. As well, we also have a competition coming up that we're hosting in a month from now in Japan. So that's going to be the first official competition that we host as WSpec, as this new organization. So yeah, again, those are just things that are coming up right now. Yeah, again, a lot of development on that side, a lot of planning on the longer end. As the applications open, it'll be more development, and then finalizing things for the full competition next year, August. So a lot of quick things have happened, but again, functioning similar to a startup right now. We're just heavy focused and really developing quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific.
I want to get you in this, Daniel, because you've been talking about the biology part. But you also talked about trying to make the business case for bioplastics. Are there things you are working on making the business case for right now?
It's a ball I'm definitely dedicated to moving forward. Is really triggering these demand signals to emerge for a reason for this stuff to exist more near term, and those are starting to get traction. So more so than raising funds and building prototypes and doing the dog and pony show to more clearly articulate what we're doing. Again, it's pretty low risk. That can be done with enough cash and a very short amount of time very quickly. Okay. So it's more about the adoption, and the dog and pony show would make that a lot easier to do, but there has to be a reason for it to exist. As I've had interested investors for a long time, but there's no revenue to do this stuff, or even programmatically to benchmark it against other approaches, whether you're talking about in space or in the carbon market. It's something I'm still digging in deep in, is it's an out of the box type of solution very much for both markets. And it's just trying to differentiate it from a process level is a challenging thing to do. So I'm determined to break that mold.
Okay, well, if you do, let me know, because the reason I asked the question is because if you can make if there's some specific thing, even at a 50,000 foot level, you can make a business case for. I don't know when your next speaking engagement is, but you live in Virginia. I was going to maybe have you make a short talk at my business track at ISDC in June.
I'll be there. I'm right down the road, so I'll be here.
And that's McLean. So
yeah.
It's right in your backyard.
Yep. No, it's right here. I think, we did Apollo. We went to the moon by architecting from the right. And I think we really have to start making the case better for anything in space from the right, is where are we going and what are the needs there? And then they become so much more Earth applicable, so much more rapidly. And just saying, well, eventually we'll get there, I think is just the wrong approach, because we don't know what it's going to take, and we don't know what's possible unless we really try architecting from the right, as NASA does on this stuff. So
I want everybody to understand what he means by architecting from the right. That means when Kennedy went out and said land on the moon and return him safely before this decade is out, that put a deadline and that is the deadline. And then we work our way backwards from that. Like, what has to happen in order to plant the flags and footprints by a certain date, which we have not been doing since then. For the last 50 years, we have not been architecting from the right. We've been architecting from the left, which is more of that waterfall. We're going to do this thing, and then when it's ready, we're going to do the next thing, and when it's ready, we'll do the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing. Sean is like, that's very common sense in the military because that's how we roll. But that's not how NASA scale engineering has been operating for a long time. Let's bring Doug on. Sorry,
the whole concept of space scalable came out of architecting from the right.
Yeah.
My original presentation in 2008 was full of it.
Yep.
In more ways than one. So.
Doug, Dr. Plata, you got your screen up? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think Sean is going to go ahead and share an image that I sent to him. So I'm down here in Brazil. Actually, I'm in a 3-week sort of weight loss program, lost 15 pounds. So you guys will be seeing a lot less of me when I come back. So that's
congrats. That's awesome. Good for you.
Great.
And while I'm down here, I have a lot more free time than I have up in the States. So I'm using it right now to try to finish up a book that I've been working on called The Case for the Moon. I'm at 242 pages so far, and pretty happy with the table of contents. Sean, are you able to share that at all?
He's asking you to resend it.
Okay, well, it's in the LinkedIn chat, but I'll send it. Maybe. I can only see.
Okay, well, give us a taste of the table of contents. Oh, there we go. Oh, that's fantastic. All right.
Look at that. Well, it's cool, whatever it is. There's lots of pages and.
Yeah, so there's the cover page there. There's two pages of the table of contents, and it's broken down by sections. It's a pretty technical sort of book to do with transportation and infrastructure and surface transport and habitats and living on the moon, working on the moon, international lunar exploration phase, the international lunar base, so different habitats. So it's sort of organized in that sort of way. Right there, you see there's actually 3 pages that have those little graphic, what do you call it, infographs.
Yeah.
And right there, I'm just hitting the reader right smack dab in the face and saying, here's the main arguments for the case for the moon. And probably the 2 biggest ones are the round trip travel time to the moon is 70 times faster than a round trip to Mars. So if you're comparing the moon and Mars, the moon has you doing round trips like far, far, far faster than Mars. So that's a huge one. The round trip time for speed of light communications is also pretty important. We don't think about this. When we go to conferences, it's 85% male. Our wives are not. So we're going to have to convince our wives to go. And from the moon, you can be telepresent in family Earth, like Thanksgiving and graduation, wedding, stuff like this. Mars, you cut those ties. It's got to be video files only. Another surprising thing that comes out of this analysis is the radiation. If you go to the moon, you 3 days one way that you're exposed to deep space radiation, and then you get underground under regular shielding. Whereas low Earth orbit, you're being exposed to an Atlantic anomaly, and so it builds up. And then on the way to Mars, you're getting about 1/3 of your careers, maybe 40% of your careers radiation limit just in the one-way trip. And so the moon is actually far less radiation exposure than either of the other locations. And there's other stuff as well. I'll just leave it at that.
So that's your update. When's the book coming out? What do you have in mind there? And importantly, is there any talk about a Lagrange point or let's say alternative paths to and from the moon?
The answer is large. Well, okay. So when it's coming out, I mean, my goal is this thing done in about 10 days from now. That's my goal. We'll see. Yeah. I'm down here for 3 weeks and sort of like, man, it's now or never sort of thing.
Exactly.
In terms of alternate paths. Yeah, man, gotta jump at opportunities when they present, you know?
Yeah.
In terms of alternate pathways, by and large, I say no. I say a big part of the book is saying, from a probability standpoint, the Starship fleet is where it's at, okay?
Right.
And Starship fleet can take you to low Earth orbit, and there's most definitely the opportunity to do tourism in low Earth orbit, including tourism on the way to the moon. Okay, so I agree, there is that. But in terms of going to EML4, no way. It's just going to the surface of the moon.
Okay, cool. Right on. Well, exciting.
That's how
exciting. Right. All right, we have about 15 minutes left. How are we going to use that, Captain Olson? Oh, Tom Olson just bailed. All right.
Let's do prophecies for the next year.
Well, he wanted us to do kind of a highlight reel for the year. Let's do that, right? We normally ask our guests, what does 5 years out and 25 years out look like? So let's ask, I can see you, Doug. Hang on a second. Let's ask each of y'all what 2026 looks like, and then 5 years and 25 years. But go ahead, Doug. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, can we amongst ourselves? Do we have agreement that Starship? I mean, what we saw with Flight 11, that is the future. Is this something we can agree upon?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So to me, Elon Musk showed a short video scanning his phone camera in the Starship factory, and I counted, I think it was 12 Starship nose cones under construction. So honestly, I think we're seeing a fleet being developed, and I don't think we can ignore that. That is absolutely huge.
Okay. Now, Tom, just to catch you up, sorry you had technical difficulties. We just started waxing philosophic around Starship for a second. Doug asked, do we all kind of agree that that's the future? Doug, I'm going to go a little step further than that, because when I kind of coined the phrase Starship Singularity, it means Starship, but it also means all of the spin-offs that happen as a result of Starship. And that means Japan putting $8 billion into commercial development, Germany putting $40 billion into commercial development, JP Morgan putting $1.5 trillion into commercial development. It's not all going to space, but a big chunk of it is. That it's not just the Starship story directly, it's the spin-offs of Blue and Rocket Lab and everybody else. Yes, I believe that Starship is the lead, though. No question about that.
By how far? How many years ahead is
long? It's long. It's long.
So honestly, no like say for example, Rocket, by the time they get their fully reusable medium lift vehicle, it's too late. Starship is going to be well ahead of them.
Starship is uncatchable. I don't question that. But I do think that there's the push towards nationalism and sovereignty over rocket capability is also equally unstoppable. It will never be as big, but But India must have its own capability. China must have its own all of these nations are going to build out their own additional.
And and all of them now are all talking about reusables.
Right. Yeah.
Just the head of ESA just the other day said, if we don't get reusables, we're never going to keep up no matter what.
Sean's got something in the chat about Pepsi versus Coke. It's all of the other systems combined will be Pepsi, and then there's Coke. It's going to give a lot of people that don't have access. What's that?
I'm sorry, I disagree. They are competing for the same, and there's a limit to how providers the market can serve.
I don't think
if you got a fully
the only. I don't think market is the only consideration for Germany and for Japan and for China and for India. I don't think market is the consideration.
Or Russia.
I know, but it's the main thing. The market is the market, and you can find a niche. ULA has found a niche, and they will survive. That's not the question here. The question is who's going to dominate.
Yeah.
And I think if you have super heavy, fully reusable, and you can do ride shares on that, I think they dominate.
I don't question that at all. I don't question their dominance.
I think there's a longer challenge though to some of this. Is do people really? I mean, Starship is Starlink, right? Starlink is funding Starship. That's the demand signal. It's still a telecom, and there's been a turn away from, especially the newer generation, away from the the telecoms controlling everything, either through social media or through the marketplaces. There's a real economic and social drive that could determine a lot of this. I don't think the governments will get too heavy-handed and involved, but I think that's kind of if another can emerge to actually compete with Starlink is the question. Will the demand just be soaked up and saturated by Starlink, and then these other efforts to get out into space, may not have a market, but
yeah.
Starlink
because they need payload.
Starlink revenue will exceed NASA's spaceflight budget by the end of this year.
Yep. Yep. That's so crazy. It's so hard to wrap your head around that. Yeah. It's great. It's so great.
Starlink has not maxed out the number of people that want, internet anywhere and direct to phone as well.
Mm-hmm.
But it will hit a peak though. It will saturate. And it's kind of like electric cars, right? I remember looking up the electric cars. Any idea how many cars there are in the world? It's like 1.8 billion cars. You know how many electric cars there are? Like fully electric, it's like 20 to 30 million. It's still this much, and I feel like we're, as much as electric cars are the future and everything like that, it could have this pushback that electric cars have faced with, that's long supply chains. All right, these things are still a big capital investment and stuff.
Yeah.
Just the whole bundle of technology being a capital investment for a certain subset of the population, they just be like, hey, I don't have time to sit on a screen for 12 hours a day. I got to feed my wife, and I got to do something physical out in the world. So I think just from a career shift, right? And you see this in the tech sector, right? With AI, it's almost shooting itself in the foot, is bleeding all these tech jobs away and further concentrating them. I think AI may be this double edge of, hey, we're going back to the trades. And we're kind of this walk away from the internet may happen that is something that's rather unpredictable, I think.
Real quick, this is a bit of a prognostication here. One is like next year, there's going to be a lot of data center talk in space, and in 5 years, that bubble is going to be dead. There's a lot to data centers. I've worked in them. Anyway, but the whole thing about Starship and a competitor is the killer app for space has not been invented yet.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Home computers, the PC did not catch on until once you could suddenly do business work yourself, that changed the game.
Mhm.
Okay. That was the first killer app for computers. Okay. We don't have that yet for space. We're in 1974. Microprocessors are just getting started. People are building things like the Altair and in their basements. The Apple One is still a pipe dream at that point.
Still in the garage, yeah. It hasn't even been released yet.
That's where we're at right now. We need the killer app. When we have that, you'll see competition to SpaceX and Starship. But until then, it's not going to happen.
And do you think that's in the biomanufacturing, research and development? You're talking about in the physical asset world or in the telecoms?
It's settlement.
Physical asset world.
Physical asset world. It's fiber optics, the whole, that type of killer industry. Once we get industry manufacturing something of value in space.
That's worth bringing back down.
Yeah. And the pharmaceuticals are, I mean, Space Tango, the pharmaceuticals, but how much you need humans in the loop and how much you need a big payload mass to do that. Do you need a Starship? I don't know that Space Tango's looking to optimize, a whole Starship flight versus, hey, maybe a lower risk profile, smaller launch provider. So,
yep. Yeah, we could go on for hours.
And we can't.
Yeah,
And so
3 minutes.
on that, guys, we're going to have to halt the conversation on this. Gentlemen, my God, thank you so much for coming. It's been wonderful having you all on this special show. I just want to take a couple minutes before we go. I want to, engage with Michael a little bit on the past, present, and future of this show and of the center in general, who sponsors it. So we want to move to that. Thank you guys for coming on, and see you all again very soon.
Thanks. Take care.
Something's on there. What's going on? What's that?
No, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay, you? Okay. Never mind.
Yeah. It just had a momentary glitch when we pulled the guests.
We've started some very interesting conversations in the past, and this is certainly one of them. I wanted to go back. There's a couple events we did. We've done really two things that I can point to. Maybe you can point to some more. One is that whole thing on shipping containers.
Yeah, that changed.
We started a whole thing going well past this show on the idea of shipping containers, and that's still going on. And people are working on that problem, and I hope it turns into something. I could say you heard about it here first, folks.
Right, the unknown quantities showcase that for sure.
And we've had the most amazing conversations with a bunch of different legal minds and non-legal minds about property rights in space and on the moon and on Mars and in the asteroid belt, and how do we, work around the constraints that we're under. I thought some of those conversations were quite unique compared to what I've read or heard anywhere else. Yeah. And so we can point to that. Anything else you can think of that we thought was just like really outstanding?
Well, I like many things about this show. I like the news, right? Like, I don't know any place on the internet that can do a news roundup like we do a news roundup. By the way, I did really like having our guests weigh in on the news with us. I thought that was super fun. We haven't really done that before. We talked about it. We just threw that in. So really appreciate them for their willingness to be guinea pigs for this show. But I like doing the news. I think the news is important. There isn't a roundup of news like this on the net, and I think that's super useful. Dr. Fly is like, it could be more efficient. You're right about that. It could be. It could be.
The news is messy, Doug. It's messy. It's just like a lot of things in life,
And I'm very long-winded. Like my answers tend to be, professor lectures rather than responses.
There's that. Yeah.
the other thing I really like that I kind of miss, which I know we're not really bringing it back right now, but I really liked the micro grant component.
Yep.
I thought that was it added a level that we wouldn't get otherwise. So I do like that.
Just looking for a new sponsor.
Yeah, right. We need another sponsor for that. Yeah. Yeah, I like that a lot. And I love our guests. I love our guests, especially the ones that are kind of in that funding founders role, right?
Yeah.
Either the folks writing checks or the folks that get checks written to them.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that I would kind of like to aim for is to get larger VC funded companies in here, and the folks. We've only had a few. Hoyt Davidson's going to be on. Great. Looking forward to that. That's in November. We've only had a few VCs, and I'd like to get some more VCs on the show. I think they make the news.
I met one guy in Australia that really wants to get into the idea of expansion capital, because he doesn't do startups. He likes space, right? But he doesn't do startups.
All right.
So expansion capital. We've even talked about doing a competition on that level. I don't know how that would work. But he's talking about putting 10, 20 million on the table.
Right on. Wow.
So that's significant.
Yeah.
And we already know people through our networks and have gone through our program. They're probably at that level right now.
Yeah,
so that's
for sure.
We could do. I know Sean is trying to give us time, but we've already gone. Give me a couple more. Just go for it, because we need to get this out. So as far as the future goes, there's one thing I've been trying to work on this for a while, and I'm going to get it done within the next, hopefully, a couple, 3 months. The center is going to start taking Bitcoin. And so, and I'm going to be talking to people about just that while I'm in Austin next week.
Cool.
That could actually help, jumpstart that. So that's something that's going on. As I've announced earlier, I'm taking a shot at affiliate marketing. I'm doing other things for different reasons, and so which means is our regular mailing list is going to start getting, instead of just occasional little newsletters, I'm going to be sending them something as quickly as once a week. We'll talk about all the news and all the events that are happening, and then at the bottom, I have this new affiliate offer you might like. And not everybody's going to like it, and that's fine. The point is the numbers. You just keep doing that. Sooner or later, somebody's going to happen about something. Oh, that's really cool. I want that. And so, and all the proceeds help the center. And so it's just another third source of revenue, other than grants or donations from large donors. I want to add to our possibilities of financially moving this thing forward. And I don't want crumbs anymore. I want us to really do some really good stuff, and I'm going to get up to that. My goal is 1 million, and we're going to get there. I don't know when. Hopefully, maybe into next year, but we're going to get there. And then we can do all sorts of things. You can do all sorts of competitions and all sorts of win micro grants. And oh my God, there's somebody I can hire an executive director, so I can do other stuff. It's that's what it comes down to. So that's it's really my goal there, but that's kind of where we're moving in the world, and we're going to get some. And again, our guests are great. And coming up Monday, Stephen Fleming, an old dear friend. He was a VC. He had his own venture capital firm with some guys back in the late 90s, and they were really involved in tech sector stuff, but he's always a space junkie. I do believe he was one of the early investors in Xcore.
He was
then. And but after he got out of the VC business, he became the head of the department at his alma mater of Georgia Tech, which does commercialization of all the R&D that's coming out of Georgia Tech. And so it was a technology transfer is what he called it. He was the chief of that for many years. And recently now he's a consultant. He's a successful senior executive. He has leadership experience in startups and multinationals and private equity. And he consults a lot. And now he's moved from Georgia to Arizona. And so we'll be hearing from him. Well, I hope it's going to be a wonderful show this coming Monday. And I guess we'll... awards after accomplishments completed. That would be That would be kind of cool too. That's a great idea, Doug. Thank you. Let's look at that. There are certain areas I don't want to get into. I don't want to be an accelerator because being an accelerator is like it's a voice in a chorus.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get heard. And how do you compete with Y Combinator? Why would I want to?
Yeah.
And so we're going to find other ways to do what we got to do, because we have, as of today, 98 companies have been through our program in one form or another. We have introduced 98 companies to the world, and about a third of them have gotten money.
Yeah, it's amazing
because of our work. And so that's a pretty good batting average for anybody, including Y Combinator. So I'll stand behind that all day long.
Yeah.
But we'll have to do it next time. For Michael Lane, Sean Key, and all the wonderful people who were here tonight, I am Thomas Andrew Olson. Keep watching the skies.